The first of the environments is XFCE. As you can see on the picture, it's similar to Windows. The default panel layout, however, is not as intuitive for those accustomed to the Start button on the lower left corner of the screen. This system's layout has the main application bar at the top. It's also where the counterpart of the Start menu, Tray or Application buttons are. The bottom contains shortcuts to the most run applications. The environment is very light and aesthetic. In general, the interface can be changed to resemble the one from Windows XP after a couple of panels have been moved. It has very low requirements. It can be used on slower machines without problems. In most cases, the project is available together with distributions. Fedora has ready-made software sets containing XFCE. In Fedora's case, you can even download the live CD image, in which the default graphical environment is XFCE. The desktop is comfortable, pleasant, has low requirements, but you can encounter some problems while using it. Namely, the session doesn't always behave properly during logout, which can lead to problems for users who don't know their way around it. Unfortunately, the problem is severe enough to require a desktop setting reset. At least OpenSUSE did not have this problem. You need to test which version works best for your machine. The second equally light environment is LXDE. Default settings resemble Windows XP, with the classic Start menu and classic Tray. The premise was to make it similar to XFCE. It has the same goal: deliver a small, lightweight, user-friendly graphical environment to the user, and permit execution of all key activities while remaining easy on system resources. It's more stable than XFCE. There are no logout issues, saving user settings, and so on. The environment looks a bit different. It's based on a different library than XFCE. It's really more like KDE, which will be covered in a bit. XFCE is a lighter version of GNOME, and LXDE is a lighter version of KDE. In Fedora's case, downloading the live CD image is an option. This image has the entire system on it, with default settings set to LXDE. Extra information can be found on the project's homepage, and almost every available distribution has this environment in its resources. The two biggest players on the Linux system graphical environment arena are GNOME version 3 and KDE version 4. The systems differ vastly from each other. Let's start with GNOME. The slides show the idea of GNOME to deliver a unified environment consistent with what can be found on mobile phones these days. The idea behind GNOME is that the user concentrates on just one most needed application. The desktop contains only one window, and we can see only one application. Application search and selection is very similar to the Android-based mobile phones. We have one big drawer full of applications. The desktop has few shortcuts max. All messages and system information is displayed in the message bar. Using the computer comes down to using a mobile phone. The GNOME environment is very well developed. It has many graphical effects and great possibilities. The specific programming base for this environment integrates well and is big. GNOME is a solution that allows the most user interface innovations and system behavior for the Linux system. The idea behind GNOME is identical to the one currently being forced through by Microsoft, with the emergence of Windows 8 together with the Metro system. A completely different interface, completely different way the user works with the operating system. The interface is similar to mobile phones, Some users who use and are used to a mobile phone way of using the system can feel very comfortable in this environment. However, there are users who prefer the Windows way, specifically Windows 7, Vista, or XP, and will feel a bit lost in the GNOME environment. The GNOME environment is available in practically every distribution. Some of them have it as a default, like Fedora. The Ubuntu system has the Unity environment, which is based on GNOME and is very similar in appearance and the way it works to the one offered by Fedora. It's worth mentioning that XFCE is based on the same libraries, the same rules for window presentation as GNOME, but it's based on the older version of GNOME, version 2. GNOME version 2 resembles Windows systems, which is why people who, for some reason, do not want to use the KDE environment or anything like it should have a look at the XFCE environment, so that they can make use of the same possibilities, but in an older graphical environment. Alas, GNOME cannot be installed along with XFCE. Theoretically, the two systems should work together fine, but unfortunately, problems arise. XFCE and GNOME use the same libraries, which is why some XFCE settings will collide with GNOME settings. For example, after installing GNOME 3 in the XFCE environment, the sound will start working like the one in GNOME 3, and it won't find some dependencies. It's not fully configured, and because we're working in an XFCE environment, it will stop working. It's worth remembering that it's not worth installing both these systems on the same machine. An alternative environment to the two most popular GNOME environments is the KDE environment. As you can see in the picture, the KDE is very similar to the one used in Windows system. Right now, KDE is available in version 4. At the beginning, this version had a lot of bugs. It was underdeveloped and many people were going to stop using the system. Right now, KDE has shown its true power, and current versions are available in all up-to-date distributions, and are well developed and very functional. KDE is one of two most developed graphical environments for the Linux system. This system has many innovative solutions, yet they're presented in a way that does not interfere with what every Linux user is used to. First and foremost, it does not hinder productivity from the need of using any applications at once in any way. In a situation where our work, or functions, which we're doing is based on using one specific application, the GNOME environment might be better. At this moment, nothing distracts us. We see one specific application. No extra messages or the like distract our attention. If, however, for some reason, more than one application has to be run at the same time, we need to have direct view on any of them, and GNOME can start to be troublesome to use. KDE handles this very well. It adds some interesting simplifications in the interface, which enable easier grouping of similar system actions, in a way that makes them accessible in an easy, quick, and pleasant fashion. Moreover, KDE offers more eye candy for the environment, so those who like translucent windows, acceleration, fancy ways to maximize or minimize windows popping up from the desktop will be happy. This environment offers all of those things. Quality and functionality-wise, KDE is close to GNOME. But it's more like the Windows environment. It's easier to find your way around, and advanced users can execute more system activities compared to GNOME. KDE's lighter counterpart is LXDE. The environment is based on the same set of libraries. No situation in which the lighter version would collide with the heavier version have been noted, unlike in GNOME. You can install both environments at the same time and switch between them at will. KDE, like GNOME, is available for all Linux environments. It's used less frequently as the only default environment. KDE is available as the default in Kubuntu, a version of Ubuntu. And despite being treated as an equal graphical environment by OpenSUSE, it's suggested as the default environment to install in the system. The cause for this behavior lies in historic reasons. In the beginning, when the first versions of KDE and GNOME emerged, the window drawing library on which GNOME is based, also called GTK, was a free solution and in line with the open source spirit. KDE was based on Qt library. This library, in versions 1, 2, and 3, was free, but only for non-commercial purposes. It's hard to speak of any freedom there. Qt could be applied for home use, but if you wanted to use it for commercial purposes, it was not available on different terms. From version 4 upwards, the Qt library owner, Nokia at the moment, allowed it to be completely free. But historically, GNOME was number one for persons who prefer full freedom.